Hello, third grade, and welcome to lesson 13-2. In this lesson, we're going to talk about equivalent fractions, and we're going to use a number line to show those equivalent fractions and how they fall into the same spots. Let's go ahead and watch our lesson video together, and then we're going to jump into our notes and our guided practice.
How can you use number lines to find equivalent fractions? Think about this question during the lesson. The Circle W Ranch 1 mile trail has water for cattle at each 1/4 mile mark. The Big T Ranch 1 mile trail has water for cattle at the 1/2 mile mark. What fractions name the points on the trails where there is water for cattle at the same distance from the start of each trail?
Let's find out.
What is the same about the drawings of the two trails?
Okay, here let's stop and take a look and pay attention to all the details on this. Now we have two number lines. We can see they start at the same point and they end at the same point. So that means our number lines are the same length. They are equal wholes. Now, if we want to figure out where there are equivalent fractions, we're going to look for where there is a mark in the same spot on both number lines. Now we have a mark here, but there's nothing here to go with it. This mark has a mark directly below it. So we can see that these are at the same point on the number line. So they show the same amount of distance that passed from the start until that point. This one doesn't have anything here, and this one doesn't have a matching one here either. So the equivalent fractions are going to be the ones that show the same amount of space from the beginning until that mark.
They are both the same length, and they both represent 1 mile. What is different about the drawings of the two trails?
Now, if we want to look at what's different about them, we can see that the top trail is broken into 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts or fourths. The second trail is broken into 2 equal parts or halves.
The drawing for the Circle W Ranch Trail is divided into 4 equal parts. The drawing for the Big T Ranch Trail is divided into 2 equal parts. You can use number lines to find the fractions. What fraction is missing on the number line?
Select your answer.
Now here we're looking for equivalent fractions. So we know this is broken into 2 equal parts. So the first part is going to be 1 out of those 2 parts, and the second one is going to be the 2 whole parts, or 1 whole. Now over here, we know an equivalent fraction for 2/4 is going to be 1/2, because 2 is half of 4, half of 4, and 1 is going to be half of 2, so they're equivalent.
Equivalent fractions are different names for the same point on a number line. 2/4 and 1/2 name the same part of the whole, so 2/4 equals 1/2. How do you know that 1/2 and 2/4 are both names for the same location on the number lines? They name the same points on the number lines.
Drag the slider to explore equivalent fractions.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move through here. Now, anytime you have equivalent fractions, you're going to see numbers that line up. So the marks are in the same spot. Now, do we have an equivalent fraction for 1/8? No, we don't have anything. It doesn't line up with any other mark that's on the other number lines. But what if we go over to 2/8? 2/8 we see lines up with 1/4. And remember, you can use multiplication here as a way to find equivalent fractions. How do you go from 1/4 to 2/8? If you do times 2, if you multiply the numerator and the denominator times 2, 2 times 2, or 1 times 2 is 2, 4 times 2 is 8. Since we're moving those in the same way, those are equivalent fractions. Now 3/8, we don't have anything that lines up with that, but 4/8 is equivalent to the 2/4 mark and to the 1/2 mark. Now notice how all of these show halfway between the starting point and the ending point, so half of your whole. And pay attention to your numbers. You'll see that 4 is half of 8, right? We need 4 times 2 will give us 8. 2 is half of 4. 2 times 2 will give us 4. 1 is half of 2. 1 times 2 will give us 2. Now to move from one fraction to another, again, you can multiply the entire fraction, the numerator and the denominator, by 2. So if you do 1 times 2 and 2 times 2, that'll give you 2/4. If you go 2 times 2 and 4 times 2, that'll give you 4/8, and so on. So 5/8, we don't have any equivalents. 6/8 is equivalent to 3/4. And again, you can move between these numbers. You can see that each one of them, if you double the 3 and the 4, you'll get 6 and 8. For 7/8, we don't have anything, and our wholes are always going to be equivalent.
The fractions 2/4 and 1/2 name the same points on the trails where there is water for cattle. They are at the same distance from the start of the trails. Now you know how you can use number lines to find equivalent fractions.
All right, now we can go ahead and jump into our notes and our guided practice together. We've gone through the different ways to find equivalent fractions using a number line. So our question that we're focusing on is, how can you use number lines to find equivalent fractions? So remember, when finding equivalent fractions of the same size whole, you're looking for fractions that cover the same amount of space. So they show the same amount of distance you traveled from the 0 mark to that point. Now, all 3 of these number lines have equivalent fractions where they mark the same distance on the number line. So my first number line, I can look at the denominator and I can see this is broken up into fourths, or 4 equal parts. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. This one, I can look at the denominator and see that this is broken into 2 equal parts, 1, 2. If I look at my third number line and I look at the denominator, this is broken into 8 equal parts. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal parts. Now I drew them stacked on top of each other so that you can see where points line up. So my 1/4 and my 2/8 are equivalent fractions. My 1/2, my 2/4, and my 4/8 are also equivalent fractions. They mark the same point on each of their number lines. My 3/4 and my 6/8, same thing. They cover the same distance from the start until that point. So they are equivalent fractions. So the halfway points are all equivalent fractions because they all show the middle of your number line. They all show the halfway mark. So 1/2, 2/4, 4/8. So notice that, again, 1 is half of 2, 2 is half of 4, 4 is half of 8, and so on. Now the points that are showing 1/4 of the number line are also equivalent. So 1/4 is equal to 2/8. So notice that 1 is a quarter of 4. 1 times 4 will give you 4, and 2 is 1/4 or 1/4 of 8. 2 times 4 will give you 8. And the same thing is going to be true for 3/4 and 6/8 because those are also equivalent. Now you can show equivalent fractions on the same number line if you want. You can list them underneath each other where there are equivalences. So I can see my main number line here is broken into 8 equal parts. I know that by looking at the denominator of my fractions. Now I know that 2/8 is going to be equivalent to 1/4. So 8ths are broken up into 8 equal parts. If I combine 2 parts, I'll have 4 equal parts. So if I make them into groups of 2, I'll get fourths. So 2/8 is equal to 1/4, 4/8 and 2/4 and 1/2 again, are equivalent. They show the halfway point between the 0 and the 1 whole. My 6/8 is equal to 3/4, and my 1 whole is the same thing as saying 8/8 or 4/4 or 2/2. Remember, anytime your numerator and your denominator show the same number, that means you have all of the parts, so you have the whole shape. Next, let's take a look at another example. It says complete the number line and find the missing equivalent fractions. Now, my number line originally only had the numbers that were in black. So I had the 1/8 mark, I had the 4/8 mark, and the 7/8 mark. And then one of my equivalences under one of the marks showed 3/4. So I know I'm working in eighths for the main number line, and the equivalences I'm looking for are in fourths or in quarters. So I need to stop and think, what size fractions am I looking at on the number line? How do I know? So I look at the denominator. So my main number line is an eighth. So I'm going to be skip counting one at a time to make a group of 8. My equivalent fractions, I can look at the denominator here and I can see that's a 4th. So I need to look for equivalences that have a denominator of 4. So to fill in the missing number, I'm just going in number order. So 1/8, after that is 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and then 8/8 is equal to 1 whole. And then I can go back and take a look at my equivalences. Now I know 2/8 is the same thing as 1/4 because I know that 1 times 2 is going to give me 2 and 4 times 2 is going to give me 8. So those are equivalents. They're equivalent to each other. Or I can work the opposite way. I can say 2 divided by 2 equals 1, 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Same thing to find this one. If I'm not sure, I have 3/4 and I have to make this 4 into a denominator of 8. That means I need to multiply my numerator and denominator by 2. So in order to make 4 into 8, I need to multiply by 2. And whatever I do to one part of my fraction, I need to do to the other part of my fraction when I'm looking for an equivalent or an equal size fraction. So 4 times 2 gave me 8, 3 times 2 gave me 6. Now let's take a look at our notes, or sorry, our guided practice. For the first one, it says complete the number line to show that 2/6 and 1/3 are equivalent. So on our number line, we had 1/6 and then a blank, and then 3/6 all the way out to 1 whole, which would be 6/6. So I know right now I'm going to go in number order. So 1/6, put in 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, and this 1 whole is the same thing as 6/6. Now, if I'm looking for an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 3, I know that 4/6 and 2/3 are equivalent because they gave me the 2/3. Now, I know in order to make 2/3 into 4/6, I can multiply the numerator and denominator each by 2. So 2 times 2 will give me the 4, 3 times 2 will give me the 6. Now, if I know this is 2/6, that means over here it's going to be 1/3. 3 times 2 will give me 6, 1 times 2 will give me 2. For number 2, it says Sheila compared 4/6 and 4/8. She discovered the fractions are not equivalent. How does Sheila know? Because 4/6 and 4/8 don't show the same point on a number line. Remember, this one is broken up into 6 equal parts, and this one is broken up into 8 equal parts. Now, if you want to think of that like a cake, if you have a cake that's cut into 6 parts, and then another cake that's just like it, same size, is cut into 8 parts, the one that's cut into 8 parts has smaller size pieces because we have to share them with more people. The one that's cut into 6 equal parts has larger size pieces because we're sharing it with fewer people. So 4 out of the 6 total pieces is more than 4 out of 8 total pieces. Now for numbers 3 and 4, they gave us a number line and they wanted us to fill in the missing numbers and find the equivalences. This one, I can look at the denominator and see that it's broken into 6. So that means there's 6 equal parts here. I'm just filling in my missing number, 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, and then 6/6 is 1 whole. And they wanted us to find any equivalent fraction here. So 3 out of 6 is the same thing as 1/2 because 3 is half of 6 and it shows the halfway point on the number line. Now I know this is true because I can do, how do I go from 2 to 6? I'm going to multiply by 3. So 2 times 3 will give me 6. 1 times 3 will give me 3. And for number 4, we were filling in equivalent fractions and missing numbers here as well. And they showed us based on where those equivalent fractions were sitting, we could figure out what unit we were using. So over here, we were working eighths. The equivalences are going to be in fourths. So we know 2/8 is equivalent to 1/4. Over here, when we're counting on 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and then 1 whole is 8/8. And we can find the equivalent there. So as you go through these, stop and think about your multiplication facts because those are really useful. Remember to count on when you're working with a number line, and remember that your number lines have to be equally spaced from each other. All the little tick marks on your number line need to be equally spaced apart. If you have any questions, let me know, third grade. Otherwise, have an amazing day. Take care. Bye-bye.